Hi, everybody. Welcome to the ShopNotes Podcast. I'm Phil Huber, and I'm joined today by John Doyle and Logan Whitmer. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the things that are on our bench or not on our bench, as well as our New Year's resolutions for our workshop, why we set them, what we hope to accomplish by the end of the year, and how we can hopefully be better woodworkers. This episode of the ShopNotes Podcast is brought to you by Woodsmith Plans. You'll find nearly 1,000 plans covering everything that you'd want to build, from furniture projects to gift projects, kitchen accessories, workshop projects and jigs, and more. Find your next project at woodsmithplans.com.
All right, should we start off with what's on our bench?
Let's start.
Yeah. John, I know you just finished something up. What do you got going on next?
I don't have a lot going on right now. Let's talk about what's not on my bench, I guess.
Yeah. What's been cleared recently from your bench?
I'm, I guess, kind of currently working on getting more organized in the shop, I guess you would say. So I've kind of cleaned stuff off, kind of pared down on some of the clutter that I have around. So that's my current situation, let's say. So
I mean, you're going to clear off your clutter from the studio?
No, that's where I'm moving everything
to.
Okay. It's like the studio, put it on the shelf there.
Just transfer a pile
it's
from
like
one
it's not
place
my
to
problem
another.
anymore then.
Right.
So that's kind of what I got going on. But
cool.
What belongs to all of us belongs to none of us.
Right.
Yes.
And then maybe it'll just disappear if I leave it laying around. So
Good idea.
yeah.
Well, I am taking a break from cutting boards for the next 3 years.
You're starting to have a problem.
I was,
have an intervention, so.
the cutting boards for Christmas were kind of it was one of those projects that evolved bigger than I was expecting. Like, I'm gonna make some cutting boards, great. And then you get into it, and you're like, oh crap, this is a lot of cutting boards.
A lot of gluing, a lot of sanding.
But there's that early middle part of the cutting board project where you're like, I can crank these out.
Yeah, it is.
And then you start doing that, and then you get to the later part, the later middle part, and you're like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah. So I, made all those cutting boards for Christmas, and they went over great. Everybody loved them. So in my shop at home now, I'm kind of in the middle of antique hand tool piles. I mean, they're stacked all over. So I bought, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I had bought a couple auction lots from an auction here in semi-local, and now I'm sitting on like 45 to 50 hand planes and saws and stuff, and I'm kind of starting to piecemeal them out and sell them and stuff. But every time I walk into my shop at home, I look around, I'm like, oh my Lord, I have so much. I have so many that I just need to get through, and it's kind of a weird game because my intentions were buying them to clean them up and sell them to somebody as a user, as like,
Sure.
Hey, here's a Stanley Bedrock 605 jack plane user. But what I'm finding is it's actually more profitable for me to flip these and sell these as parts. But then it's like 4 times the work because instead of selling one plane, I'm selling a chip breaker and a blade, and then a sole, then a tote and a knob, and it's like it's 4 times the amount of work. So there's that give and take, and what's worth it, what's not worth it. Should I just unload them the quickest way possible, which is probably what I'm going to do, is start just selling them whole instead of trying to piecemeal them out. But yeah, projects are kind of on hold while I clear out my shop and hopefully make a little money on it, and then we'll start something else up.
Yep.
So.
Well, in addition to John's problem of just get to the after Christmas lull that I've been dealing with for the last couple of weeks, where you just kind of feel like you got to take a couple of deep breaths and realize that going from one project to the next project, you just kind of have stuff piled up in different places until you're just left with a couple of little goat paths around your shop. I had some plywood left over that I had gotten from Brian, that quarter sawn white oak stuff, and I really don't want it hanging around my shop anymore, so I'm trying to figure out what I can do with it. So I think I've decided to do a kind of a mid-century style bookcase, a low one, because I feel like a lot of the bookcases are all these really big, tall, room-conquering things, and I want something a little bit outside the norm for scale and size.
Yeah.
So
you're going to start it soon?
Yeah, I've got it started a little bit. I've kind of narrowed it down to a couple of designs, and it's going to be kind of built around the material that I have, because I don't really want to go out buying more. So
Yeah.
it's more of a shop cleanup project
Sure.
than anything. So
Which my cutting board started as a shop cleanup project. So
see, so there's precedent for it.
yeah. Well, it leads us kind of into the topic for today's podcast is New Year. You know, we're into the New Year, a couple
Right.
of weeks now. Did you guys make any shop resolutions for your shop for the new year? Like, is there something in your shop you're going to try to do better this year, or goals for your shop?
I usually set resolutions. I'm kind of a resolution person. And I look at it more as goals. It's not necessarily, I feel like some people try to get resolutions, which means that they're going to be that way instantly. And to me, it's more of a long-term thing, so that by the end of the year, this is the kind of characteristic or habit or whatever. So for me, like, I usually try and get rid of stuff out of my shop a couple of times a year, just because I don't have a lot of space, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. But I really want to do a better job of not accumulating stuff in the first place. Because we do these articles in the magazine all the time about how to maximize the space in your shop, which to me becomes like code for I have too much crap and I want it to look halfway organized, when you maybe just shouldn't have that much stuff to begin with.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I try to do that every so often too. It's kind of like dig down deep into the back of the drawers and what's pushed back there that's not getting used ever. And if it's probably back there and it hasn't been used in a while, it's not going to get used. Or I'll find it and it's like, hey, I should be using this hardware or this tool or whatnot. So yeah, it's a good idea to kind of sometimes take inventory and see what you have and what you actually need and kind of go through all that as far as your tools and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and I think, at least in my shop, I've kind of, after working in it a few years, I know what tools I really use, what tools I use occasionally,
Right.
and what tools I somehow accumulated that I don't touch.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? And that's my first big hand tool purge that I had, was getting rid of stuff. I'm like, I don't use this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's good to take a step back and say, okay, I don't use that, I don't need it, and then, hey, I don't need to bring this home. It doesn't need to come live in my shop because I'm going to do it again in a couple months. So that's a good kick to the new year.
Yeah.
Try to keep a organized, clean shop. I think that's kind of one of the things we put on the pedestal and we strive for, but we never really obtain.
Right, because there's the chaos of being in the middle
Yeah.
of a project, and for the most part, we're all three of us are doing it kind of on the side or in our spare time. So that always comes in fits and starts. So it's like you're out in your shop for a little while and then you have to go back in and make dinner or whatever. And so you're going to have to leave stuff in a little bit of chaos. But it's being able to manage that a little bit. And I've always been attracted to the idea of minimalism, but I realized that I'm not that person.
Yeah.
So it's more of just, I don't know, like you've said it a few times on things like one in, one out.
Right. Yeah.
I on the minimalist thing, I do enjoy the idea of a Zen workplace where it's just, your shop has 5 or 6 tools that you use and you can do everything you want with those tools.
Right.
The reality is, though, most of us don't work like that.
No.
So,
Well, and I feel like woodworkers in general, when it comes to cleanliness, are, I don't know, kind of like ravens, where we just see something shiny and fun, so we want to take it and
make stuff with it.
make stuff with it.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
I mean, it could be tools too, because, like I have how many squares or tape measures, or you find hardware, which isn't all that easy to find, if it's something that's really interesting. And it's like, I would really like to use this, even though you don't have an immediate use for it. So you just kind of squirrel it away somewhere. And,
Or it's something you see on clearance and you're like, hey, I use those all the time.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you don't use them anymore. So what about you, John? You have any New Year's resolutions?
After I get my shop kind of cleaned up and organized, I would like to finish some projects that I started long ago and then put to the side. I have a cabinet. It's kind of outside our downstairs bathroom in the kids' bedroom, where it's going to be a linen cabinet, and I think I had started on it let's say December 2008 or 9.
Solid.
And it got kind of put into parts, and then as I put it to the side for a while, and then I put the cabinet together and I hung that up, and I was like, well, I'll finish up the doors and drawers here soon. And then I think that was probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and like the kids will just kind of sit in this big cabinet outside the bathroom and watch their iPads and stuff. And so it's fun. You know, the towels are piled up in there, and they're kind of laying in there like a little bit. So it's been a nice little home, but I think I need to finish up some of those projects that I've started long ago. And
Well, you gotta let the pieces acclimate to the house,
yes,
right?
exactly. And so it's been an evolution. So,
I think we moved a few of John's projects from our old videos.
From the videos, like in a pile there. I was like, well, I better take these home and put them to use. So I think that's kind of my resolution, is to finish up some projects that, need finishing.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
You got any others?
You are very much a resolution-oriented individual, or you like to set resolutions. I don't, because if I don't set them, I can't fail. Right?
Right, there you go.
You just don't set the bar very high,
Yes, and then you can jump right over it.
Exactly. It's easy to step over.
You don't hang up a target. You never have to worry about missing.
Exactly. No, I've never been one for setting resolutions. It just not been something I do. Now, do I have goals for my shop? Yeah, and some would argue that goal is the same thing as a resolution. Sure, it is. It's a resolution now because it's the new year. I would say that my biggest goal for myself in the short term is to get more of a system set up in my shop. You know what I mean? Like I think every shop ends up with a system on how work flows through it, right? The workflow of your shop. Whether it's, you're in your garage and you start off at your joiner, your miter saw, or, your regular arm saw, cutting stock size, then your jointer, your planer, your table saw, and then to your bench or, what have you. For me, it's more firming up what that flow is in my shop and what that looks like from raw stock to finished project. Because it seems to, at least the projects in my shop, seem to migrate between my shop and here a lot. So it's like I need to more, focus myself on, if I'm going to work on a project here, it stays here. Or if I'm going to work on one at home, it stays home. So just because moving stuff around before it's finished, stuff always seems to get dinged up or scratched up, stuff like that. So.
Or you always leave something here that you really need at home.
Exactly.
I've done that I don't know how many times.
Yeah, so I would say that's my biggest goal for this year, is to get a better system down for my shop. So, I wouldn't know that I would call it a resolution, but it's a goal. And if I fail it, only me and everybody that listens to this podcast will know it.
We'll know and be able to check in on you in December.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to it.
So, all right.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for the ShopNotes Podcast. We'd love to hear any questions, comments, or smart remarks that you have. You can submit those on our Facebook page for Woodsmith Magazine or on our Instagram at Woodsmith Magazine as well.
Yep.
So otherwise, we'll join you next week right here. Thanks.
This episode of the ShopNotes Podcast is brought to you by Woodsmith Magazine. Woodsmith Magazine has been the trusted source for all your woodworking information for over 40 years. From tips and techniques to furniture projects to shop projects, you can find it all in Woodsmith Magazine. Subscribe today at woodsmith.com.